Hey there! Thank you for clicking on this video. I really appreciate it. First off, a couple things to note. One, I apologize about the cup that you're seeing here. I needed a stable surface to elevate my camera and get a good bird's eye view so I don't have to hold a camera and fidget at the same time. I was running out of ideas and I saw that my cup was right there on my desk, so I figured why not. And then second, I'm doing this all in one take, so I apologize if there's any issues related to that. Anyways, today I'm here to talk about fidgets, and in particular, leather fidgets. I've been going down the fidget rabbit hole now for a while, and I've really had the opportunity to experiment with a lot of different styles of fidgets and figure out what gels with me. And what I've come to realize is that the fidgets that I continuously keep coming back to are these leather fidgets here. Now, these are substantially more simple than other fidgets. You know, at the end of the day, these are all just variations of magnets encased in leather. But nonetheless, these three here have easily become my favorites, and all three that you see here have been elevated to become part of my everyday carry. I don't see leather fidgets being discussed a lot, and I'm hoping to use this video to shine a light on why I think they're so great and why I think you should give them a try. So what are the pros of leather fidgets? I think there's three main pros. First off, I'm never worried about dropping these on the ground. So one of the main appeals of leather fidgets is that they're going to break in over time and develop a patina that's going to be unique to every fidget. So most fidgets nowadays are going to be some sort of plastic or metal or 3D printed material, and you may want to be careful with those because they're going to be subject to scuffs or scratches if you drop them. And I can see if you spent a lot of money on them, you might be very hesitant to take them out in public where the risk of dropping those might be greater. So with leather, I don't have to worry about that at all because, you know, getting scuffs and scratches on leather is just part of the appeal. They're going to look better once they've been worn in and get those imperfections on them. And one thing I've also noticed is that for most minor scratches or scuffs, they'll just buff themselves out over time through repetitive playing. Another big advantage of leather fidgets is that they're inconspicuous. So I mean that in the sense that these three fidgets will not draw attention to yourself if you're out in public. So they're inconspicuous in a few different ways. First off, they're relatively quiet. So I'm not going to say that these are silent, but these make amount of noise that's perfect for an office setting or a social setting. So if there's any ambient noise in the background, I think these are going to fit right in. Also, I don't think these are very eye-catching, for a lack of a better term. They fit in your hand pretty easily, and they look relatively simple. So maybe if you're someone who doesn't want to take a big fidget spinner in public because you're worried that someone might look at you weird, you're never going to have to worry about that with these leather fidgets. And then finally, all three of these are small, and therefore they're very pocketable. So just using my hand for reference, all three of these kind of fit within my hand pretty easily. And I don't even bother putting these in any sort of leather pouch. As I mentioned, leather is meant to be broken in over time, and I don't mind if they jostle around in my pocket. So what I'll do is since they're magnetic, I'll basically just stick these three together as a bundle, drop them in my pocket, and go on about my day. And then the final perk about these leather fidgets is I think all three of these are very good value. So in terms of cost, we live in a world now where you can easily drop hundreds of dollars on a single fidget. All three that you see here ran me $75 or less. And also, I think there's a lot of different customization options in comparison to traditional fidgets. So since you're dealing with leather, you would get a very wide variety of customization options in terms of the types of leather, in terms of the color of leather. So for the color in particular, you can get colors, basically any color under the rainbow. And then you also have options for thread colors as well. And then finally, one thing you can do with these leather fidgets that you can't do with traditional fidgets is get them monogrammed. So for a few of these fidgets here, they have basically long flat surfaces where if you want to get a couple words monogrammed on them, and create something that's really personal, you have the option to do that. So all in all, yeah, I think these fidgets in particular are great value, and they really give you something that may feel a little bit more personal than other traditional fidgets. So that's my spiel on why I think leather fidgets are so great. Now let's talk about the 3 leather fidgets that I have here. So going from top to bottom, we have the leather coins by Saangoh. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. It's Saangoh. The second are the Macarons by Fidget Newton. And the final is the leather magnetic slider by CaribeLeatherGoods. So all 3 of these makers have shops on Etsy. I will link those in the description. But I also want to note that the makers of these 2 fidgets, so Saangoh and Fidget Newton, they also have individual websites that I will link in the description as well. I would really recommend checking those websites out to see their full range of offerings. So I'm going to talk about these fidgets in the order I got them, so once again, from top to bottom. I'm going to start by discussing how you play with them, and then I will discuss their customization options. So starting with the leather coins by Saangoh, these were my first foray into leather fidgets. I don't know about you all, but I've seen the creator of these advertise them pretty heavily on social media, and that's where I saw them for the first time and thought they looked interesting. So when I first saw these, I decided to do a little bit of market research to see if there were any other makers offering leather coins like these. And there's quite a few people on Etsy in particular that have created some sort of variation of these. But after doing some scouring, I was drawn to these because I really think these have the highest quality of craftsmanship. So anyways, getting to the play styles, actually before that, I do want to mention, I think there's 2 perks to these leather coins. First off, these are the smallest out of the 3 fidgets I'm going to talk about in this video. So as you can see here with my hand for reference, they fit very easily inside my palm. These are honestly small enough that if I wanted to, I could break these apart and probably just put these in my wallet. And then, I can always have a fidget in my wallet. The second perk is, despite these being so small and despite these being so simple, because these literally are just a couple of magnetic coins encased in leather, these arguably have the widest variety of play methods. If you see some of their, if you see some of Saangoh's social media advertisements, they advertise quite a few different methods you can use to play with these. I have a few methods in particular that I gravitate towards. Probably the most common is, I call it the peel and flip. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I will peel them and flip them to where they attract back together. Another popular one I do is the finger roll. So what I'll do is I will use my finger as a pivot point. I will basically flip these down my fingers across my hand. Another option you can do, this is a little bit more of a two-handed, but you can kind of rotate these in a similar way to how teeth would interact on a gear. And then finally, I can configure these to repel instead of attract, and I think that gives a really interesting feeling, just feeling the 2 magnets repel against each other. One thing you could also do in terms of repulsion is you can actually press them together and create a flipping motion where they'll basically just like flip up like you're flipping a coin. I don't tend to do that much because I usually just end up dropping the coin. But long story short, yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities to, or a lot of different ways to play with these. And if you consider buying these, I think you'll figure out what appeals to you pretty quickly. So in terms of customization options, there's quite a lot of different customization options for these coins. First off, there are 3 different types of leather on offer. The type you see here is, I believe, their standard offering. It's a smooth leather called Minerva. They also have a grainier leather called Pueblo. And then he has a leather that is finished in a wax, I believe, that will wear down over time. For all 3 of the leather types, there's a variety of different colors on hand for both the leather and the threads. I will say for color, I originally got these in a light brown. It was called Omo, and the color of the threads was called Cream. I will say these fidgets, in comparison to the other 2, have patinaed the most. So yeah, they originally started as a light brown, and they've turned into a dark brown. So I'm going to try to bring it up to the camera here, but you can kind of see around the threads right here shades of that light brown that it originally was. In hindsight, I might have picked a different color that wasn't going to patina as much. And I might have picked a color where the threads, I might have picked a different color for threads other than cream or white, just because I think they've lost their luster a little bit. But at the end of the day, this does not change the playability of these. And then finally, you can get these monogrammed if you want to get a couple words on each fidget. There's obviously long flat surfaces here. If you want to get a couple words, put on that and create something really personal. So next up are going to be the Macarons by Fidget Newton. So these were recommended to me right after I got my coins. And fundamentally, I would say these are actually pretty similar to the leather coins, enough to where they deserve a little bit of a comparison. So one thing I will say that you'll probably notice right away is the size. So these are still incredibly pocketable, but both of these coins right here are about equivalent in size to one Macaron. So with the design of these Macarons, they are not entirely flat. You can see that they jut out in a convex manner, and the magnets are kind of in the center of the fidget at the peaks. So what this means is that where the magnets actually touch and where the fidgets actually touch, it's going to be a relatively small amount of surface area in comparison to the magnets. And the main advantage of this is this creates a fidget that is extremely easy to play with. In fact, I think out of all three of the fidgets that I have, these are probably the easiest ones to just kind of pick up and just start fidgeting. I have given these to multiple friends to play with, and it's always just fun just kind of watching them just kind of click immediately on how these fidgets are supposed to be manipulated. So I will say one maybe minor con about the coins in particular is they have a very particular way that I need to separate these. So, and that is what the peeling motion that I was talking about earlier. So what I'll do is, or rather, before I even get into that, you can't really press down on these with your thumb and separate them. So I had to do the peeling motion. And what I'll do is I will put these I will rest these fidgets on my middle finger. I'll use my index finger to push towards me in one direction with the bottom fidget, and then I'll use my thumb to push in the opposite direction. So it really is kind of a peeling motion. I had that muscle memory built up for the Macarons, so that peel motion still works pretty easily, but overall, because these are bigger and because there's less surface area of the magnets touching, you really don't have to do that. You can very much easily just kind of push down on the Macaron with your thumb and kind of manipulate it. Another thing you could potentially do is I can still kind of hold them in my middle finger, but I can kind of flip them up and down, just kind of using my thumb. You can still do some interesting moves with these, like, so as I mentioned, the peel and flip motion works very well, very, very well with these. But yeah, overall, these are just incredibly easy to manipulate, and I think that's a huge pro of them. So in terms of customization for the Macarons, kind of similar to the leather coins, there are quite a lot of different customization options. So he offers these Macarons in a standard leather that's going to be a smooth finish. What you're seeing here is not a standard Macaron. These are actually called, I believe, the Sindel's handbag. So these use a little bit more premium leather than the standard offerings. You might be able to see it here. There's actually a little bit of texture on this leather, which creates a little bit more of a different sensory feeling compared to the smooth coins. Now you can see that as I play with these, a lot of that pebble texture is kind of worn down over time, but I still get that textured feeling, just when I'm gripping them. Another interesting thing about the Sindel's handbag is he has a monthly subscription club called Sindel's of the Month, where basically every month he'll put out just some really interesting color combinations. So the ones that you're seeing here are called the lightsabers. These were made for May of 2026. So what you can see here is, they're black, but they have a red ring and a blue ring, kind of similar to Anakin's lightsabers from Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I had to go ahead and jump on that. And then finally, he does offer these in a premium leather that's called Shell Cordovan, and I believe that is some of the most premium leather you can actually get on the market. And then finally, I did mention that he has his own website, Fidget Newton. I would really give that website a very thorough run through, because there's probably a few specialty types of macarons that I'm missing that I haven't discussed here. So then finally, we have the leather magnetic slider by CaribeLeatherGoods. So the first thing I want to mention in terms of play is I believe that Caribe has the widest variety of fidgets that he offers. So for Saangoh, he just offers variations on the leather coins. For Fidget Newton, he offers a few different varieties of the Fidget Macarons. But for Caribe in particular, there's quite a lot of different types of leather sliders that he offers. So this right here is a 3x2 slider. I believe it's either his most standard or most popular offering. You can kind of see here, it's just 3 rows of 2 magnets. But in terms of just free floating sliders, he offers quite a few different leather magnet configurations. So this is a 3x2. He offers a 3x1, in which that's just going to be 3 rows of rectangular magnets. He offers a 4x2 if you're looking for a 3-click. He also offers a square slider that's going to be in 3x3. And then finally, I believe he actually offers some leather coins similar to Saangoh. But I was obviously attracted to this because I just wanted a leather slider that would manipulate a little bit differently compared to my other 2 fidgets, and I think it fills that role incredibly well. So I will say, for any slider people watching this video, I would not go into purchasing this slider expecting something like an aura sand. This slider has broken in over time and has become a lot smoother, which definitely helps with the playability. But this is not something I would say that you could do fancy play on, and that's not really the point of it. And honestly, that doesn't necessarily bother me that much, because I'm not someone that has learned a lot of tricks yet when it comes to free floating sliders. I tend to do the same tricks over and over again, which, just like the ladder, or just pushing them up and pushing them down. So in terms of customization options, once again, just a wide variety of different options on offer. So he does have a standard leather that he makes the majority of his fidgets in, but he also offers a premium shell Cordovan variety. Now, one thing you'll notice, CaribeLeatherGoods only has an Etsy shop, and when you go to look at some of his offerings, there are no drop down or selection offerings for colors of leather or colors of threads. So what you need to do is you need to message the owner of Caribe directly on Etsy. His name is Fernando, and you need to start a conversation with him, and he will work with you to find exactly what you might be looking for. So I cannot rave enough about Fernando's customer service. He's incredibly thorough. He's incredibly responsive. I know I wanted a 2-tone fidget in particular. So as you can see here, one side is maroon and the other side is a dark olive. He gave me previews of the leather colors to figure out just what pair of colors I'd want. And he also helped work with me to recommend the colors of the threads. I have a orange on the olive and then an electric blue on the maroon. And yeah, just very happy with the customer service that he provided to get exactly what I wanted. And he also does offer some monogramming services as well, kind of similar to the leather coins. So as you can see here, just a couple long flat surfaces here if you want to get a couple words put on those. And then finally, he does have his logo. His logo is a pair of cranes. I thought they looked pretty cool, so I had no issue putting those on there. So that basically covers an overview of all 3 of my leather fidgets. So now I think the final question you may have is, do I have a favorite between these? And to be honest, I don't really have a favorite between them. I love them all equally, and as you've seen, I carry all 3 as a bundle. So I'll start playing with one, and when I'm ready to move on to the next fidget, I'll just pull it out of the bundle and play with it. Variety is the spice of life, right? So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope that I've given a thorough overview into leather fidgets and why you should try them. If you have any comments, please let me know. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have, and I may even have some ideas for future videos about fidgets in the future. So thanks, and have a great rest of your day.